State your name and your age.
John, you want my name and what?
Your age.
Oh my gosh, John A. Makell Jr., 82 years and 3 months. Got that?
James Makell, 16.
Alright, my name is Allison Rains. I'm 16 years old.
My name is Ayesha and I'm 16 years old.
The date is December 5th, 2014, and I'm sitting with former Hot Sox players John Makell and
James.
James Makell.
James
That's my
Makell.
brother.
Okay.
December 6th.
December 6th. My apologies.
Tomorrow's Pearl Harbor birthday. That's why I remember the day.
Yep, right.
So, could either of you walk us through a typical baseball game at Wilson Field? Give us some insight about the people who came, the foods that were cooked, and the excitement of the game.
Okay. You know the history of the Hot Sox.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we moved to Wilson Field about 1925 there.
Yes.
That's when we started there. The games were initially played on a Saturday, just on a Saturday, and holidays, and later on it expanded to Saturdays, holidays, and Wednesdays, and much later on it expanded to Sundays there. So we played usually 3 days a week, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday there. Initially the food was cooked by the wives of the players there. Hot dogs, chicken and crab cakes and potato salad was the initial fare there. Hot dogs usually cost 10 cents or 15 cents, crab cakes 25 cents, potato salad about 15 cents, and chicken depending upon whether it was wings, necks, backs, or legs, or what have you. The highest cost of chicken was, of course, the breasts and the legs there. We had sodas there, and some beer was sold there. We used to purchase the hot dogs at a store at the end of Galesville Road, in the beginning, where the Dixon store.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have any money initially, so they would give us the hot dogs on credit. After the ball game, we would go up there and pay off our debt, hot dogs and sodas there. Now, the bleachers were built. The first that we had 2 sets of bleachers. The first set of bleachers were built in 1947. That was on the first base side of the field. The next set of bleachers was in 1957. Now the bleachers that were up there when the county took the ball club were not put into play by the original Galesville Hot Sox. They were just some rudimentary bleachers. The players basically were local players initially. They came from around this area, and a few of them from around Shadyside and Churchton there, and a little further up from Edgewater. Then later on, they expanded. The players that got from Annapolis and Parole, which you probably don't know much about. You ever heard of Parole?
I've heard of it.
You have? Okay. Parole was annexed by Annapolis some years ago, but it was a thriving community called Parole. And then much later on, the reputation of the Hot Sox spread so much that guys wanted to join the Galesville Hot Sox. So they came from fairly much all over being Severn, Maryland, Dorsey, Maryland, Glen Burnie, and so forth there. You want me to continue? You want to ask some questions first?
Can you tell us a little about your rivalries with teams such as the Drury Giants, the Parole Cubs, and the Davidsonville Clowns?
Okay, well initially, very back in the early days, the rivalry was between Edgewater and Galesville. That was in the way a long time ago. Mm-hmm. Then later on, it was Drury Giants, Davidsonville Clowns. And they was located, they had a field off of Central Avenue, off of 214, Davidsonville Clowns there. And those were two, I guess, and Parole Cubs. They were the main rivals initially there. Then as the years went on along, others came into play, like Orange Eagles down in Calvert County. They were strong rivals of Galesville because they had their own field, with one of the few fields early on with lights. The lights didn't last too long. They would come and go. They would be lit as you played along, and 4 innings, and a couple of innings later they would go out and come back on and so forth. But we did play them. Early on we used to played barnstorming Negro National or Negro American League teams. You know, have you ever heard of that or not? Have you ever heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, great. Oh, great. The Elite Giants. Some people wanted to say Lelite, but initially we played with Elite, E-L-I-T-E Giants. Were the ones that was the team that we originally played, and they expanded to the Newark Eagles and Homestead Grays, and there was another Negro ball club called the Indianapolis Clowns. We used to play them on a Saturday. Early on, we didn't charge too much because people didn't have so much money. We charged 50 cents a person there. And my uncle used to tell me once when we played the Elite Giants that we took in over $800. Now, using mathematics, you can figure out how many people we had. So people used to come from all over to see those games. And they had some really famous ball players that a couple that went on to the major leagues there. Joe Black, which you may have heard of, and I can remember Junior Gilliam used to play with the Dodgers some years ago. He used to come and play against us there. And the way our field was built, we didn't have much of a depth to the infield. You had a diamond and some dirt part, and the dirt didn't extend but so far. And the Negro ball players used to playing where they had the dirt was way back and the grass was not as close there. So I remember Junior Gilliam, when he used to play down here, he used to have a problem there because there was a hump between the bare part and the outfield grass there. But a lot of the Cuban ball players were on these teams because I was a young boy initially there, and I was really fascinated by them. They used to impress me by what they did and speak a little Spanish to me. And I didn't know what they were talking about, but I used to eat it up there. But that was it early on. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want me?
What did the baseball game mean to the community?
Well, it was a gathering place for them. It's not like today where you didn't have, whereas today you have a lot of places to go. Back then you didn't have so much to do. So people used to look forward to coming to baseball games, socialize, watch a game, and eat good food. Later on, the menu expanded there. We had a little more than what we originally did. We had soft crabs and fish. Fish we had originally. I played for a team called the Falcons there. On this team, mixed ball, white and black ball players. Pip Moore, you don't know whether you ever heard of that.
Okay.
Joe Alton, who was county, at that time he was a sheriff of Anne County. He used to travel around with us to basketball games and got to know me and obviously the rest of the players. So when he was elected county executive of Anne Arundel County, he asked me to be director of Parks and Recreation. Well, I wasn't really all that interested initially because I was teaching and I was working on my master's degree as a guidance counselor. So he persuaded me to become director of Parks and Recreation way back in 1968. So I served from 1968 to 1975 as director of Parks and Recreation there. It was a little tough sledding at first because people had to get used to the idea that I was not quite as white as they expected. So I had to a lot of community meetings to sell myself. We built a lot of parks and recreation areas, quite a number of parks and recreation areas. And at time, there was a lot of competition for this recreation areas adverse to large parks. So people who wanted large parks were pushing. People who wanted smaller parks to play baseball and overall playground areas were pushing there. So it was a little tough sledding. Couldn't please everybody, did what it could there. So I thought I did very well. So I served from 68 to 75, then went back to the school system, the guidance counselor.
Wow. There actually was a playground here in Galesville, right here at the Rosenwald School.
You got to put the playground here.
Yeah.
So we put a lot of what we call vest pocket areas. Vest is so small park areas. And this was one, this is one area we had a vest pocket area scattered throughout the county, small areas in which they had playground equipment and maybe a basketball court, so forth. Yeah.
I think there's still a sign out there that says it's a that it was a best playground.
Oh, we should get some pictures.
So, it should be right out there on the side of the road. We've also met with Rick Anthony, that's the current, Director of Recreation and Parks, and they are gonna recreate, there used to be a path from the ball field to here, the community center, because every time they had a big ball game in a crowd, they would have fish frying up on the field, but they would also have it here. So, right. And I saw a flag, one of those little orange flags out there. And so they may be getting ready to get started, because hopefully we'll have that done at least by April the 25th when we have our exhibition game. But Recreation and Parks is going to recreate the path, because there's great significance for the school and the ball field, because actually the team actually started here on this site before they actually moved to the Wilson property. So.
And that's important historically.
Yeah.
That's very important historically.
Okay. Any other questions?
I don't think we have.
You good?
Hold on here,
No,
we're good.
You're amateur,
Is it
I'm a
recording?
semi-amateur.
There you go, John, we're good.
So what spiked both of you guys' interest in baseball?
Say it again.
What spiked both of you guys' interest in baseball?
What?
What spiked your interest in baseball?
My interest?
Yeah, what made you interested in
Well,
playing
all my
baseball?
relatives were played baseball. My uncle, who was one of the founders of the original Hot Sox, and my father played baseball, so that sort of came naturally. At one time, I think 5 of the Makells played on Galesville Hot Sox baseball. It's a big family, of course. We had the numbers there, so it just came naturally there. And I started this when my father was off from work. He used to bring us to the ball games there. And I just fell in love with baseball just as I did other sports. Yeah.
What spiked your interest in baseball?
Mostly family too. I mean, it's just the aura of it. Everybody there, and it seemed like everybody's watching you, so you get a chance to, show off something. I mean, you're playing and everybody's watching you, and then after the game, you sort of mingle with the people there, and
So you're a big shot.
you were a celebrity, more or less.
Was there anyone you looked up to?
What's that?
Was there anyone you looked up to?
Well, my uncle, especially my uncle Leslie, he didn't have much formal schooling. He was only in the 8th, going on to about the 7th grade, because back then economically you couldn't afford to stay in school. You had to drop out of school and work on the oyster rock or wood fields, fish and oyster house. But he was one of those, because he's a very well organized person, extremely well organized, and plus he was a real good citizen as well as my father.
So who was your role model?
I guess my pop, I always, he always instilled it. Be the best that you can, and by him bringing me some games, most of the time my brother would bring me to some games, but watching him play and seeing his speed, running, catching balls and this, that, and that way, made me want to do the same thing.
So is this correct? You signed with the Orioles in 1955?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Well, I was in the service. I was stationed over in Japan and playing over there, and played on the base team. And some touring teams came over to play us, picked an all-star team together, and I did well against them. Plus, there was a lieutenant on the post who had some association with the Baltimore Orioles, so he recommended that I go ahead and that the Orioles go ahead and sign me. So when I came back home, I worked out at the stadium there, and I did well enough for them to sign me to a contract, which was good. But in the meantime, it kind of hurt my shoulder. Went to spring training, and I didn't do well in my throwing because of my injured shoulder. there. So I decided, just got married, by the way, in February, so I was kind of anxious to get back home to my wife there, so I didn't bother about going to any hospital to get my shoulder repaired. And that was my brief stint with the Oilers. I went to spring training with them. We're down in Florida. I forget the name, the Dunedin, D-U-N-N-E-D-A-I-N, someplace in Florida, really, in Georgia, really close to the Florida line there. So I met a lot of former present ball players from the Orioles there. I never regretted my decision because I had the opportunity to play a lot of sandlot baseball. Plus, I had a wife then.
Yeah. So, do you have any memories of, or did you ever interact with Joe Black, who went on to pitch with the Brooklyn Dodgers?
Yeah, what?
Do you have any memories of, or did you ever interact with Joe Black?
Well, I took a class with him at Morgan, and believe it or not, he was taking some classes sort of sporadically. I don't know what he was working on, whether he was finishing a degree or not, but I remember taking the English class with him there. And I remember that we Galesville beat the Eli Giants at one time. They had a lot of times they had the second line ball players come on and play the sandlot ball game. So the next time we played them, Joe Black came along. We didn't beat them that time either. We did not beat them that time. So that was the only interaction. My interaction with Junior Gilliam, just as I was a boy then, just watching them play. I didn't play that much then because I was a little too young, wasn't skillful enough there.
So you were like a teacher for a few times too. What did you enjoy most about working with students?
Say it again.
In your teaching career, what did you enjoy most about working with students?
In Korea?
Teaching.
Teaching?
Yes.
Well, I taught science. I taught science for most of my teaching career, a little bit of physical education. I just love teaching. I just loved exploring the science area and interacting with the kids. So many different personalities, as you know, because you got one, your friend has one, and how to go ahead and put this personality, blend them together so they can achieve there. But I really like teaching there because you got an opportunity to see students grow a little bit there, and you have to take them from where they came there, then come there, extremely intelligent, anxious to learn and what have you there, so you had to spark the answers. Plus I coached baseball in high school for 10 years of coaching baseball and 2 years in coaching varsity basketball then. And just for information, at that time when I was coaching, integration hadn't started there. We had one high school, Bates High School down around the county. And in order to play other teams, you had to go to schools that were always black. We had one in Prince George's County, Douglas, Upper Marlboro. Montgomery County had one black high school. Calvin County had one Brooks High School. We used to go to Baltimore City and play Douglas, Dunbar, and Carver play there. And we used to travel over the Eastern Shore in Delaware and play teams over there, Macy's Lane there. Then a couple of years before, when integration really started coming to fore, probably by 1964, then we started playing schools like Severna Park. Severna Park and Brooklyn Park were the first white schools that we played in baseball there. Then later on, I think in 1966, they fully integrated all the schools now around the county. That took care of that as far as competition is concerned. Yeah.
What was that like playing the Severna Park team?
It was good fun. The guys were guys. The guys were guys. They didn't mind the competition. Most times there was, I guess, the times and the adults that seemed to be more of a roadblock then. But the guys got along fine. There wasn't any friction between them, no mishaps or what have you. Turned out when we played Brooklyn Park, their teams weren't quite as disciplined there. They were a little on the wild side because the Brooklyn Park area, sometimes community is not as upbeat and upright as other areas are. So they would come out and play us, and there'd be a little bit under control, and my guys would look at me and wondering what's going on, Mr. Makell, what's going on, because they couldn't do the same thing. They had to be under control there. But again, and you had always had a few guys who wanted to innovate, to play us there. Always had a few there. I'm trying to remember the name of the person at Severna Park High, a little short guy. He was a principal there. He arranged for us to play them. It'll come to my mind one of these minutes there. But you always had one guy, two guys who were instrumental in pushing this innovation bit among athletic teams there.
So seeing you guys being so successful, like you went on to sign with the Orioles, and then Joe Black, who went to be so successful in the World Series, what did that mean back home to the people, that seeing you guys be so successful?
Well, I was a little youngster, so I wasn't in the Joe Black era either. I only played against the Eli Johnson. I was 15 then, I think. So, I didn't have the experience that my brother had with those Negro League players.
He came along later, a little bit younger than me.
So what is your favorite memory of your whole baseball career?
I guess going up to the Eli Johnson Stadium up in Baltimore, up in Westport, and walking in and see the hugeness of it, because where we played down this way, it wasn't like the stadium wasn't around, and the infield was bigger. It seemed like it was bigger. It was cut back more, so it was. I guess it was then that I said, how can't get a word up. How awesome it was for them to do their own thing, and because being segregated, couldn't get into the baseball, Major League Baseball, that they prized their own league. So, it kind of dwelled on me good.
And you? What's your favorite memory?
I guess the overall competition with the teams there, that's the overall competition there. And that's probably the highlight of my baseball career, just being able to compete against these guys. And Jimmy was talking about Westport. I don't know how much you guys know about Baltimore City, but when
I'm in Baltimore City every single day.
you really do,
My daddy works there, so he's always taking me. He's like, "Oh, look at that."
Yeah. Well, look, when you go and get to downtown Baltimore, I think it's 295 leads you to downtown Baltimore. You see a sign saying Westport. I don't know whether you noticed that to the right. You probably have. Yeah, anyway, there used to be a stadium there, a pretty big stadium where semi-pro ball players used to play there. That was what Jimmy was talking about. And when we used to play, go up there and play the top level Baltimore teams at Westport there. And it was a thrill playing there because they had nice bleachers there. The field was manicured in great shape. Man, that was great. They had locker rooms and you could take showers, and and guys used to joke about that. Some guys were living in the rural areas there. They didn't have showers to take, so they were amazed. Believe it or not, they were amazed to get under these showers there, and then guys used to tease about that. And so that was always a good, something really of interest there.
So how has the world changed between then and now, and what advice can you give to us?
How has the world changed between then and now, and what?
And what advice can you give to us based on that?
Well, my advice is to try to let the old stereotypes go. You read about certain types of people that do certain things in certain ways and what have you. My advice is to try to find out for yourselves what people are like there. Some people, because of their experiences, they have their own thoughts about things, their own prejudices, and they carry it through their lives. And unfortunately, it's transported to the youngsters, the kids, and because of the status of parents and what have you, accept this. But try to see for yourselves about people and how they are, and don't prejudge them. Don't prejudge them there. When you go into a classroom, and you see certain type of teachers, how to take the time and judge that teacher as best as you can. That's my advice to them.
And you?
I would agree with him, just be yourself and don't take things for granted, get to the root of what's going on, because somebody said that this person did something or is something, I would investigate myself before I make a decision.
Absolutely. So is there any other information that you can give us that you think might be relevant to the story?
Well, you probably have heard about the Chesapeake Independent Baseball League. Have you heard about them? Yeah, well, this is a league that was formed back in 1976 and been in existence for 39 years. Originally started with 8-ball club. The way that sandlot baseball used to be played, sometimes a bunch of us would meet on a field and schedule games like that and make phone calls and what have you. We decided to try to do a little better, so we formed this league of 8 teams. And the teams originally were the Galesville, Parole, the Orange, Drury, and so forth there. But anyway, we've been together for 39 years. The league is still functioning. There are only 6 teams in the league now, a couple of them from Washington, D.C. area there. But we've had it when we were in Charles County, St. Mary's County, and so forth. So this is, as far as I can determine, the only organized league that's been in existence for this length of time there. Galesville, unfortunately, is not in this league. They don't have a team, of course. I think they dropped out of the league after 1989 or so, there, something like that. But the Hot Sox field is still being used by 2 of the teams in the league right now. Owen Eagles and DCAs. We work the schedule out there. They play on alternate Sundays. There's no conflict there. But that's about it.
Do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
Not at all.
All right. Thank you so much.
So how are you young ladies going to use this stuff? What's the purpose in having this documentary?
So we're in STEM, which is a magnet program at South River, and we're all getting our community challenge. And our community challenge is to create a story corp of the lives of the baseball players, the Hot Sox baseball players. So what we're doing is we're trying to interview as many Hot Sox players as we can, just to kind of get an idea of what it was like back then, the history of the baseball team. And we want to make a cumulative video that summarizes what everybody said, and we have clips of what you guys say, show some pictures and give some background about the baseball team, so that hopefully we can help educate everybody about their history, the community members of Galesville, hopefully. And we're also going to create a poster that has the information about the Hot Sox and the Rosenwald School. And we also have a couple other teams that are doing the Rosenwald School and like specialized.
Basically like a document for our group. It's basically a documentary, and it shows people the importance of the Hot Sox team and like what the baseball players love about it and their experience through the whole baseball career of that.
And then there's other teams who are specializing
Yeah,
in the
pictures and so
school.
forth that you got from
Yeah, she's been a great
Yeah.
help.
And some of this information, as you know, is going to be added to the Smithsonian exhibit that we have this summer. It'll be here actually in the Rosenwald School from July the 25th until September the 12th. We also are going to have some activities. I did send you a letter with some of the information. Right. Okay. We're going to have an exhibit, exhibition game, April the 25th we plan. So we're trying to get some of the former players together, and we'll try and find some of the people from the other teams that used to play. And we also plan to do women's softball game, because that was also very popular.
We used to have a good team down there.
Right. They actually interviewed Tommy Seska last week.
Oh, yeah.
And he talked about the game, the games that they used to play. So we're working also on a documentary quilt, And I'll show you a picture of the first stage of that. We will be here on Wednesday and quilting, and we plan to unveil that quilt on March the 22nd, which is Maryland Day in Anne Arundel County. So I'm very busy trying to pull this together because I really do think that the hot socks deserve the recognition. And when it sort of fell on my plate to say what we wanted to do, and my thing is go for it because they've never really been recognized, you know, and they are very famous because all you have to do is say Galesville hot socks and people just light right up, you know. So we've gotten a lot of support from this project, but I wanted to let you know also that Recreation and Parks actually own the hot socks field now, and Mr. Makell was the first black director for Recreation and Parks. So maybe he'll tell you little something about that you all didn't realize.
Russ, tell us a little bit.
By the way, Tom DeSesco was one of our best pitchers ever.
He told us.
He told, he tooted his horn, huh? Yeah, he was a great pitcher. I mean, he could. He came along, unfortunately, at the wrong time. You know, they didn't sign black ball players as readily as they do now. But he could really pump that ball down there, I'm telling you. And plus, he was a good guy. Plus, he was a good guy.
So tell us about